Hello, this is the final part of my vlog on editing, and for this final part I'm going to go on a rundown on a collection of conventions and techniques that come up in editing and that you need to know for the rudiments. First aspect I would like to look at is seamless and continuity editing. This is editing to give the impression of smooth continuing story progressing from one shot to another, along with the overriding story of the motion picture, essentially making cutting invisible and not drawing particular attention to it. This is one of the curses of being an editor. When you do your job well, people won't notice, because they'll either be too sucked into what's going on, or it's just so seamless it's not apparent. This technique was first introduced in the way we understand it today by D.W. Griffiths, his films being noted, amongst other things, for their ability to suck the audience in with the compelling action that was carried on screen. And in seamless continuity editing, the cut will occur taken off from the point or later on than the last seen camera angle, and despite the fact this is taken at different angles, nothing has interrupted the event, and thus it is seamless. Here's an example. Shots are chosen with care to push the story along and help the audience believe what they're seeing. But this is also carefully selecting the most interesting shots to keep the audience engaged with the events on screen, making what would normally be a dull affair an intoxicating feast. An example of how you can make a scene more interesting can be seen here in another Sierra Leone example. The 80-degree rule, or the axis of action, is a very simple but necessary rule to know. This basic technique, often used in TV dramas, though it is found everywhere, is when a line is drawn between two characters engaged in dialogue, usually, which the camera can move anywhere on that side of the line. But as soon as the camera moves across the line, it breaks the axis of action and stops the characters seeming to look at each other. This technique is usually done by having an establishing shot of the two subjects, and then having one from subject A side, having a camera from subject A side look at subject B, and having a camera from subject B side look at subject A, and thus incorporating reverse shot.
Film damage can result from poorly repaired film, from faulty equipment, and from careless handling.
Splicing is the act of physically cutting and then sticking it back together again in the desired order. Methods of doing this greatly vary throughout cinematic history, including machines such as tape and ultrasonic splicers, which were both practical and efficient, all the way to cutting them together them apart with stickers and sticking them back together with a new emulsifier. Transitions. These are critical to help move the story along, but also must be done carefully, depending on the style of film, to help maintain suspension of disbelief. Transitions are a critical part of motion pictures. Quick cuts are often used in more standard films that are trying to maintain the suspension of disbelief, such as in dramas. However, more suitable transitions such as dissolve, which is the slow replacement of one shot by the following shot. Fade is quite often fading out to black, although this could be another colour, or fading into the next shot. Fades have been used before more than just transition to the next scene. From fading to one shot with characters in a room to an empty room. The impression is given that these characters are disappearing before your eyes. A wipe is when a shot pushes another out of frame, and this can be done in a variety of different ways: vertically, horizontally, diagonally, downwards, inwards, going out, etc. There are many types of shots. Montage. A technique discovered in early cinema by Soviet directors, primarily Sergei Eisenstein, in Soviet montage theory. Montages are used more to convey symbolic meanings, as they're often used in Soviet propaganda. It was the idea that the audience would connect the two shots in their head, no matter how seemingly unrelated they were. In Western cinema, the term is more often used to refer to the passage of time being sped up, as was done in the Rocky clip I showed earlier.
As they were. Now we'll put in a piece of film of a girl in a bikini. He looks, girl in a bikini, he smiles. What is he now? The dirty old man. He's no longer the benign gentleman who loves babies. That's the difference. That's what film can do for you.
Jump cutting. This is the impression of jumping forward and sometimes backwards in time by having two sequential shots taken from similar position or identical ones. Similar to montages in its manipulation of time and space, it is often used to portray chaotic or inhibited emotions such as a fight or being drunk, in an attempt to display what it feels like to be a character in that scene. Parallel editing and cross-cutting. This is a technique first developed by American filmmaker Edwin S. Porter in the pioneering film The Great Train Robbery in 1903. The film cut together two separate events that were seemingly occurring at the same time, giving a wider perspective to the world being created. The common use of this technique is the ability to create tension in a scene. Continuing on from Hitchcock's On the Table theory, this is a scene of seemingly normal event of, say, a customer take a seemingly normal event. Take a customer on the second floor of a building having a tantrum over the price of a bag of crisps, whilst on the bottom floor there's a firestorm occurring and is escalating, and the smoke and fire rising up the stairs. Then this completely changes how we view the events that are occurring on the top floor. A famous example of this is the baptism scene in The Godfather, in which we see Al Pacino become the new guardian of a child and establishing himself as the head of a criminal organisation. cutaways. Cutaway is a broad term and can refer to several different uses of essentially the same technique. But simply defined, this is interrupting continuously filmed action by inserting a view of something else. This could be occurring in fantasy, or in the past, or in the future, or anything that is different from the current. Point of view shot. Through successfully selecting shots that give the impression of being from the vantage point of the character, this can bring the audience directly into the shoes of the character in the scene. This can be done in several ways, although it is commonly done by first showing the character in the scene and then showing what they're witnessing. This is called cutting the shot. So say we see a group of men talking, and one points over there, and then the next shot is seeing, say, a comet fall out of space. You've gathered that we're now watching it, what one of the characters are. However, it doesn't always have to be the case. In films like The Lady on the Lake, the entire film was shot from the perspective of the protagonist. Although it wasn't a particularly good film, it does show how the technique can be broadened by, say, showing hands in the shot in front of the character to give the impression that you're now from the vantage point of a character, and this effect means that we are dragged directly into this character's world, and their experiences are now ours. Shot reverse shot. You will very much definitely recognise this. This is when a camera flips from one shot showing a character to another shot showing another character. This is often done during exchanges of dialogue. It's employed in essence to gauge the reaction of different characters in a scene, building building a wider world. But also this creates a rhythm and pace to the scene and the way we see things. This doesn't always have to be done on dialogue. It can be done say by simple facial gestures. So an eyebrow raise and then someone looking away. Just anything that's a reaction, or we're observing change in a scene. Providing and withholding information. Rope is a perfect example to describe the thinking process in what happens in post-production, and decisions that it makes to incorporate this editing technique in several different ways. The opening scene, you see two young men choke their old school friend to death in an attempt to see if they can pull off the perfect murder. This was not in the original script. Obviously, this is what happened in the story. But Alfred Hitchcock decided at the last minute to put it in a contradictory view to his own writer's opinion. The debate between them was whether it was more intriguing for the viewer to guess what was going on if the boys had really done it, and so at the last unveil moment, this would be gripped until that essential point, and having the audience desperately guessing over if they could do it, or if it was more exciting for us watching the boys desperately try to cover their tracks, despite the queer goings on at a party and the inevitable net tying around them. Personally, I find that particular script works better with the first scene included, as it gave an extra flair to the dialogue in the film. However, the intrigue of how and if someone did something is an exceptionally powerful tool that has kept me intrigued in many long epics, such as in the mini-series Sherlock. A particular episode is The Hound of the Baskervilles, where the audience is desperate to find out what's going on, and we're introduced to certain characters and we have to figure out for ourselves. The only flaw of this style is that you may be limiting yourself in what you can include to keep the sense of mystery up. Although, of course, this is part of the brilliance and decision-making process in the format. Which do you want? Mystery or tension? Editing rhythm. Put simply, this is time in transitions. So the amount of time given for each shot to bounce between each other. Like the rhythm of a song, timing is crucial in the smoothness and for the message of the film. If the film is a suspense flick, then having a long drawn out scenes back to back will lend itself to creating tension. This can be emphasised with sound. From bouncing back and forth we get with quick dialogue to long drawn out scenes, such as the date scene in Whiplash.
Certainly not invitation. Caravansary of billionaire playboy publishers and their blonde nurses. Heiresses comparing inheritances on Gatsby's beach. My boss, Walter Chase, losing money at the roulette tables. Gossip columnists alongside gangsters and governors exchanging telephone numbers. Film stars, Broadway directors, morality protectors, high school defectors, and Ewing Klipspringer, dubious descendant of Beethoven.
Now this is the final aspect I'm going to look at, and it's, other than short reverse shot and seamless editing, this is probably one of the most recognisable in the public eye, and this is cutting to a soundtrack. It's a very common technique, and especially in more mainstream films, as can be seen in party sequences, like in the films The Hangover, and it's practically always a choice for music videos. You sometimes see more avant-garde music videos where they have like a massive story, then a bit of music, then a massive story. But again, there is usually cut into a beat or editing in relation to the music being played. And this sort of editing is, for music video, it changes depending on the tempo of the song, the speed and the style of the song at the particular moments. I'm going to show two examples. The first is about an intoxicated man trying to make a night liaison happen when he really needs to just go back to bed. And it uses the convention of cutting on a beat, as is seen in music videos, to play on the idea of incoherent thinking, with shots often changing just before or just after the beat in the video, giving it a more jumbled feel. However, it does slip back into beat and cut on certain moments to emphasise the feeling of jubilance from being drunk. More conventional use of cutting to a soundtrack, and often directly on the beat, switching from one shot to another and then back to the other, of people moving to that beat, keeping the whole rhythm going, is for the music video No Problem by Chase and Status. And you can see that the frequency of shot variation depends on the speed of the bass and the speed of the drums at a particular moment. Cutting on the beat gives extra emphasis to the events that are occurring, such as the flashing lights and the extravagant dancing. That is all. That is the end of my Unit 16 vlog. Task 1 on the principles and history of editing.